start with the interior and then work our way through. Are maintenance costs a big issue, or does going green, as we've just been talking about with these lights, do they kind of go away?
An idea of sustainability is that you're using the correct material for the correct application. So the material is supposed to have a lot of knowledge behind it. It's a durable material, so typically it would last longer. If you're talking about low VOC paint, that's another indoor air quality.
Okay, low VOC means?
Low volatile organism compound.
Like the formaldehyde
Yeah.
we were talking about.
Right,
Okay.
Right.
I just say VOC. But if you're using a low VOC paint, it's covering similarly. The price per gallon is about the same as a high VOC, and then you're not affecting your indoor air quality. And it's a latex paint, and you'd take care of it in a similar way. It takes a little longer to dry. I wanted to mention something that we were just talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I looked into solar panels for my home, and I live in Ohio. And typically, I don't use more than 250 kilowatts per month, and that's in a summer month, so we'll see about winter. But a solar panel for my home would cost about $16,000. Right now, with the federal tax credit, they're taking 8 of that off. So that's terrific for my return.
Mm-hmm.
And then I am in control of the energy that of the amount.
As I understand it, if you produce more energy than you need, you can sell it back to the electric company and actually make a profit. Is that correct?
I think that's by law now, yeah.
That's
I know it is so in Ohio.
okay. That's
Yeah,
great.
they don't want to buy it back, but they have to.
How about maintenance costs on some of these bigger things? You know, if a pipe underground breaks, or I don't know, if something happens to a solar panel, that can be expensive. Does that sometimes negate the costs that you're trying to save?
Well, you know, that's the one thing that they don't tell you many times when you talk about payback, and that the components in some of these systems, particularly geothermal and the photovoltaics, which is the roof panels that generate electricity from the sun, is that that technology is expensive, and if something does go bad, that unless it's covered under the warranty, that's something we try to tell homeowners is if you're going to invest in that technology, don't always go for the lowest cost. Go for the technology that's been proven. You might pay a little more money for it, but in the end, that payback is going to maybe double if you have to replace a major component.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
There's a lot of things they don't teach you about maintenance too, and that
that's right. And you know, and it's a mechanical thing, and like anything in your home,
It's
it requires
yeah.
service and inspection
Mm-hmm.
and maintenance, or it's going to
right, and the more
fail.
complicated it is, the more maintenance, the more it costs.
That's
Is
right.
the same? What about maintenance on the big buildings? Is that the same issue?
thing, yeah. You're talking about big maintenance because you're talking about big systems.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't tell you about you have to clean the solar panels to make them work efficiently and that kind of stuff. And that's a cost of operation.
Okay, but that's something you bring up with your clients.
We
But-
try to, yes.
Okay. Kelly, were you going to say something?
Oh,
Okay.
I was just agreeing.
Well,
Oh, okay.
another aspect, and you might have touched on it, Dave, and that's green roofs.
Mm-hmm.
In some of your larger cities, particularly where the landscape is at a premium, many times they will be covering flat roofs with the vegetation. And as Dave indicated, that serves a couple of things. Number one, it cuts down on your heat load to the building. It protects the roof membrane,
Right.
which is a rubber skin underneath all of this earth and plant material up on the roof.
How does it protect it?
Well, because you've got 12, 18, 24 inches of soil.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's protecting that roof membrane and keeping it
Oh,
nice
so
and
okay.
And it's
protected from
helping to
UV.
insulate the roof.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. So that has its advantages, and and at the same time, it's aesthetic, particularly if you're looking down on that roof.
Well,
from
people have
other
gotten very
buildings.
involved with these things, you know, with walks and patios and
Right.
places for their employees to.
Exactly.
Plus,
Go
the
out and
plants
picnic.
themselves are turning carbon dioxide back into oxygen, so
Exactly.
it's one more.
Plus, they're transpiring moisture and they're cooling the building at the same time
Right.
from just evaporation.
Right. But that does require maintenance. That's another maintenance aspect.
someone's gotta go up there
High maintenance, yeah. Right.
That's right. But the other materials that we've been using for generations, brick, siding, aluminum, those things are all just being used and more efficiently and smarter, and require all the same type of maintenance that you normally would. We're
Just in the
using
last
better.
5 years, you've probably seen some technological innovations and at the same time costs coming down. 5 years ago, if you went to a TV store and you looked at one of those flat panel TV screens, they were $12,000.
Right.
And they're still expensive, but the price has come way down. Can you give some examples of maybe some things we've noticed technological improvements and or cost, big change in costs?
The photovoltaic panels, the panels, solar panels that generate electricity, have gotten perhaps twice as efficient as they used to be, and the cost is now a quarter of what they used to be. So you start to get both ways. You work both ends of the cow.
Now, have they, for instance, gotten smaller, or when you say more efficient, or because I'm thinking about just the cost of putting them those? That looks like a lot of work to put in a lot of
Well,
those
they're more
panels.
efficient, but you get them smaller because you want to capture so
I guess
much
that's true,
sunlight.
yeah.
Right.
They're making them in the shape of roof tiles and roof shingles
Right,
now as
right.
well. And we're also seeing light posts that are completely wrapped with photovoltaic material that can be placed out in a parking lot or in a remote area where you don't have power.
And highway signs that have these panels on them that are self-sustainable.
And they'll store energy in a battery and then emit them all night
All
long.
night long.
So
And I think as more people want the product, it's going to be an economy of scale
Right.
That's the other thing.
type situation.
Yeah, again, the example of the flat screen TV, or I'm old enough to remember when a calculator this big cost $250.
And didn't
now
do
they're-
much.
And didn't, it had 4 functions: multiply, add, divide, and subtract. And now, they're practically given away. Now, there have to be some downsides. We were talking all this happy stuff about the Earth, and what would be some downsides to going green that might be an issue for your clients or for our viewers?
Well, I mentioned earlier about the warranty and about going for price, and the downside is if you have a failure in some of the key, more expensive components of that technology, it could affect the payback. Also, technology is always changing.
Right.
And as we know, when we buy the laptop computer or the latest electronic gadget, technology seems to overcome that previous technology very rapidly, and then you have now an obsolete technology that you need to upgrade. So that's probably a downside, but that's something we really can't do much about. But buy and invest in proven technology. There's a lot of green hype out there, and everyone says that they're green and they make a lot of promises. But if, again, we tell our clients, let's invest in something that we know works, so that if it's going to fail,
Right. You want to do something that's good for the world and save money at the same time.
right.
Yeah,
No,
green
it's
is
not
a marketing stance right now, and you have to be careful of why
of-
they're calling it green.
Right.
A lot of claims.
And the
Yes, sir.
technology is changing so fast, it's unbelievable.
Let me go back to this marketing claim. What would be, have you seen, I don't want to get in any trouble and have anyone sue us, but at the same time, you've probably run up against something that claims to be green and it kind of does it or kind of doesn't do it. Is there anything that people should watch out for in those kinds of, where the claim isn't exactly what it's said, what it looks like?
Sometimes if a product claims it's recycled materials, it's taking a lot of energy to recycle. So I like to think, let's not think recycling is always the end solution. There's reduce, reuse, and recycle. And then there are some tiles that have recycled tires in them, and they're finding certain products are off-gassing. So you just want to be careful.
Are there any others that,
Yeah, if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. This is in your
That's right.
field,
right,
especially. Yeah.
buyer beware, I guess is what we would be saying. Now, how do you start out? If I showed up at your office and said, well, I want to have a new kitchen or a new house, or I'm going to be building a big building, do you automatically start suggesting green, or does the client do it? Who drives this process? Let's start.
Sure. A lot of times you work with a client and it's a collaborative. You don't understand all of their needs or wants until you form a relationship with them.
Right.
And in turn, they inform you while you inform them. We understand products, we've seen gimmicks and seen installations and know how things are going to wear, and try to give them what's in their best interest while thinking in our minds of protecting their indoor air quality and their energy usage, and giving them a couple other options. But I think it's a collaborative we're constantly going back and forth, and great learning for both of us.
Great. And Gus?
I can agree with that. This similar process and experience on my end. Many times our clients will want the end result. They said, I want an energy efficient home. I want it to be healthy for my family. I want these really neat materials that are coming out now that are more natural. How do I get there? So, we can drive the bus more or less and tell them,
Right.
here's how you get there. And with the internet today, clients are coming to us with a lot of information,
Right.
and they're teaching us many times about some things that maybe we weren't aware of, and they're able to just find so much out there. And so we help them sort that out and kind of
Right.
sort of screen the myth from the reality of it all and come up with something practical, because sometimes, again, this technology is new, or it's something that's available out in California, or it's a startup company and it's just a great idea and they'd like to use it, but we want to make sure it's something that's going to last
And it
hold
has
the
to
test
fit
of time.
within their budget.
Exactly.
And you don't have to go 100% green. Even the Leeds Council recognizes 4 different categories of buildings. Depending on how much green you want to do, you get so many points.
Well, I'm sure there always has to be a trade-off or a compromise, because if you were 100% green, it might cost the budget of West Virginia to get the building done. So, and that's what, of course, what you are
You know,
there
the
to do.
interesting thing about the Schrader Center was it didn't cost more money, and we had to do a tremendous amount of work as architects, but we made out pretty well on the fee. I was surprised for all the work we did.
That's good. Let's one last question. Where do you see green architecture just a couple years down the road? And let's make that a two-parter. Where do you see it, and where would you like to see it? Kelly, we'll start again with the green interiors.
I think there are going to be a lot of new leaders understanding what effects certain indoor air qualities and products have on their lifestyles now, similar to asbestos. Now we understand the negative aspects of that. Well, perhaps there are certain things that we could be building better now that would provide them a healthier environment. So I see a lot of new people understanding that aspect and requiring that within their built projects. And there's a lot of investment opportunities, and you'd know more about that than I would, but sustainablebusiness.com gives you a list of different companies that have green-based, and again, you'd have to sort through those practices, or renewable energy credits or green tags, where you're trading a good footprint to someone who may have a less attractive one.
There you go. Gus, where do you see things?
Well, the residential industry is moving towards what they call a net zero house, which is a home that consumes no carbon nor emits any carbon. That's hard to believe, but it is actually being done in Europe, in that they basically keep as much heat in the building and eliminate heat loss as much as they can through super insulation, very efficient heating systems, heat exchangers, very efficient windows, very efficient envelope, and taking precautions as to how they place the home on the site, the proportion of window versus wall. And that's something that's going to probably sweep this way. And we're involved in a project in Barnesville with the Olney Friends School. And that's a client that actually has been driving some of that project. It's a gymnasium and educational facility, 14,000 square feet, and it will be a LEED certified structure, and it might actually be one of the first passive house commercial structures in the country. So
Again, an easy drive for us to see it when it's completed.
exactly. And also buildings and homes are going to become smarter. And I think if we are aware of how much energy we're using, like anything, whether it be a diet, and once you start paying attention to your caloric intake, you start losing weight, or you start maintaining your weight. And there's technology out there now that notifies the occupant as to, here's your energy meter and how much you're using. And people are being aware of that. They're shutting off lights. They're being more conscientious about the type of appliances they're purchasing, where they're setting the thermostat. So awareness, controls through occupancy sensors that automatically shut off lights in rooms that aren't being used.
great.
We see a lot of this commercially. Someone walked into our office last week with a light